Hey, good afternoon to you. 3:06 here. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up this hour, Jonathan Fahey is with us, the former acting ICE director. We will talk to him about all of these ICE raids taking place across the country as violent criminals are rounded up and ejected from our fair land. We'll talk about that coming up. Matthew Hurt is with us at 4:30, chairman of the Arlington Republican Party, as we get some more details about a guy whose name is literally Richard Cox, who was posing as a woman inside of a high school girl's locker room, and we're all supposed to act like this is completely normal. Matt Hurt with the latest on that story ahead. Kurt Schlichter joins us at 5 o'clock, Town Hall senior columnist, retired Army colonel, as Pete Hegseth's nomination to become the next Secretary of Defense inches ever closer. The breaking news at this hour, it has moved to the 30-hour debate period now for Pete Hegseth, which means, according to Fox's Chad Pergram, we could expect a vote to confirm Pete Hegseth to become the Secretary of Defense tomorrow night. So about 30 hours, the clock has begun. And we could have a Secretary of Defense confirmed by tomorrow night. Among the people voting against moving that debate forward today, Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski. Murkowski is just awful, isn't she? She is just awful. She was complaining that Trump fired the Coast Guard commandant this week. I saw that on her social media. And now she says she's voting against Pete Hegseth. She doesn't think he's the right guy for the job. All she did was vote for all of Biden's nominees. And now she's voting against Trump's nominees, on principle. Please. So we'll see. It looks like Pete Hegseth could make it. It may require a tie-breaking vote. Mitch McConnell joined the votes to push it forward, which is a good sign. There was some question of whether he would do that. There may need to be a tiebreaker, and that tiebreaker would be done by J.D. Vance. So you could see Vice President Vance take a tie-breaking vote tomorrow night. That would be a busy day for J.D. because I understand that the Vice President will be, that we have that, right, Corey, that he is speaking tomorrow at the March for Life. Vice President Vance is. That's great. He's a Catholic, pro-life guy. He'll be out there speaking at the March for Life. We're also expecting a video message from President Trump to the March for Life, which is good. President Trump became he was the first president to ever speak in person to the March for Life during his first term. So we will track that as well. Also, we're getting reports today that a bunch of peaceful protesters, pro-life activists who were had their lives destroyed by the Biden administration could be in for pardons as early as tomorrow, which makes sense. It would coincide with the March for Life tomorrow that President Trump could provide that. Senator Josh Hawley has been advocating for that and indicated today that he had spoken with the president. So some interesting developments. It's been a very, very busy week. Not even the first full week of President Trump's time in office as the 47th president. He's been getting a lot done. I do have to ask a question to this audience, though, and this audience is so well equipped to answer it. Are your friends who are in the federal government or in contracting, are any of them freaking out? Maybe not your friends, maybe acquaintances, people you know. Are any of them freaking out about the fact that President Trump is in and that he's making all sorts of changes to the federal government right now? Because in case you're interested in freakouts, you should see, I'm looking today at the Northern Virginia subreddit. This is basically an online forum for people in Northern Virginia, and it is chock full of nuts today. It is loaded up with federal, basically either federal employees or people who are in touch with the federal government in some capacity, who are panicking that President Trump is firing or putting on administrative leave all of the DEI bureaus, all of the racial prejudice operations of the federal government. And they're so hysterical about this. They're comparing it to the Holocaust. I know. It's totally crazy. There's a post that's getting a lot of fire right now on the Nova subreddit. Headline, anybody else's job effed by the president's commitment to get rid of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility? Saying, quote, DHS and Veterans Affairs are two of the biggest employers to many contractors in this area. And I know for a fact that both acting secretaries and CIOs sent out comms to report any programs trying to disguise their DEIA values as well as terminating contracts that promote organizational development based on DEIA. Even their websites are now hitting 404 errors and dead ends. This is bananas. This seems like the Holocaust era, where normal citizens were asked to identify, report, and oust their Jewish friends, knowing they'd be executed. Who are these lunatics who are writing it? First of all, for this dummy who wrote this post, these agencies are literally following the executive order. President Trump's executive order declared you will get rid of all these stupid DIA offices, these destructive, racially prejudiced DEI offices across the federal government. Additionally, if you detect that there's an effort to conceal this racial prejudice, this bigotry in the ranks of these agencies, you have a duty to report that that's going on so that we can make sure that we carry out the will of the American people and follow, by the way, federal civil rights law, which says that you are not to discriminate against people on the basis of race. You're not to discriminate on the basis of gender. And yet, it had very much been baked into the federal government by the left. And here you have President Trump saying, no, that's got to end now. And you have panic setting in that this is happening. Comparisons to the Holocaust, this is just like the Holocaust, they say, with no knowledge whatsoever of what the Holocaust was or what it actually entailed and why it's so stupid to compare the fact that President Trump is getting rid of racial prejudice. That's just like the Holocaust. Yeah, Hitler was really into getting rid of racial prejudice. These people can't hear themselves as they write these things. Are you picking up on any of this? 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. What kind of panic is setting in here? Radu's calling in from Potomac on line 1. Hello, Radu. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show, sir.
Hey, Vince, how are you? Two quick things. Number one, I have a friend of mine, a pretty close friend, who's a diehard Republican, who's a diehard Trump fan, who voted for Trump 3 times, but who works for the government. And he's been, ever since COVID, he's works 2 days in the office, 3 days at home.
Yep.
And because Trump signed that deal that you have to go back to the office, he said that going forward, he's going to vote for the Democrats.
Well, that's stupid.
You can comment on that, but one quick thing I want to say, and I know this is from yesterday, but I'm actually upset with Trump because he did not walk out of their prayer service because he allowed that stupid idiot of a woman to continue talking to him. If there were me, I would have gotten up very nicely, not said anything, and just walked out. I'm really annoyed he stayed there.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a big reason to be upset with the guy, though. He made an adult decision. He sat there, and he had some things to say about it afterwards. In fact, he was way more mature about the whole thing than she was. He came out looking great, actually, relatively. So I don't know if that's something to be all that upset over. On the first point, that's a very stupid reason to start voting for Democrats, that President Trump said you got to go back to the office if you're going to work for the federal government. In fact, one of the upsides to that is this will provoke attrition. This will lead to people saying, I don't want to go back to work. I'm going to quit this federal government job. Well, good. We can begin shrinking the federal government on that basis. And if you don't want to go back to work, if your view is, I don't want to be in the office, then go work somewhere else. That's the most obvious thing. Go find another job if you don't want to agree to that deal. Or make yourself so invaluable that you can create a carve-out for yourself that doesn't require you to go back to the office. But that's the deal you've got. Thanks, Radu. I appreciate the call. Yeah. No, the idea, oh, man, I should have voted for Kamala. Crap, this whole thing, I got to go back to the office. That's the way it works. You saw that not a single federal building, something like this. Elon Musk was tweeting about this, head of the Department of Government Efficiency. There's like no federal building that is at 50% capacity right now. None. We own unbelievable amounts of real estate, and nobody is using it. Nobody. The other piece is, we have. I'm sure there's people in our audience who have been working from home for the federal government, doing so efficiently, and are in a good situation doing that. But you and I both know there are lots of deadbeats who are in the federal government line of work, who are not producing, who are not using every hour, who are not being honest about the extent to which they're actually working. And in other words, whether you're a federal employee or not, you're wasting money on people who are stealing it from you by not actually doing anything in those roles. So the whole point here is to increase efficiency, get rid of the dead wood, burn that off, get a little bit of attrition going, and make this government actually work for the American people. That's just the way it is. That's what people wanted, and they got that. Let's see here. Jeff calling in from Milton, Delaware, now line 3. Hello, Jeff. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. Thank you for taking my call. What's apparent to me now is just the absolute length of desperation that the media and the left is going to. I mean, let's face it. The media, MSNBC and CNN, they are tanking, and it's just I think they believe that it's over. AOC was out there with her little rant about Elon Musk, and I'm just like, man, when you think it can't get any more bizarre, it becomes more bizarre.
Yeah. And they are in a panic because there's a lot of reasons they're in a panic. One of them is that they're overwhelmed. They have no idea which of these issues to try and even begin to sink their teeth into because President Trump has flooded the zone. In this administration, he has wasted no time. We are, Thursday today. He got sworn in on Monday. He has gone absolutely gangbusters every single hour of this presidency. And so they really don't know where they can line up those attacks to be most effective right now. Also, Jeff, they don't have any leaders. Who's the leader of the Democrats right now? Who's actually if you had to pick someone, who would it be?
Dude, they all hate each other's guts. I mean, it's crazy. And I'll put an analogy on what Donald Trump is doing. If it was a football defensive call, it's zero blitz, and he's gotten to the quarterback. And it's just, we're winning, dude. We're winning.
That's right. Well, we've got a lot of yards to go because the left has really caused some damage to this country. But I like what I'm seeing out the gate. There's a lot of good stuff going on here. Jeff, thank you very much for that call. Let me see here. Yes, sir. Hunter is calling in from Maryland now on line 5. Hunter, you're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. I just wanted to say I agree completely with President Trump telling them to come back to work, just because for me, I'm a contractor. I work on a base, and whenever we get a project in, most of the time it's someone sending us an email, and through that email, they'll send us a drawing or whatever, and then they'll tell us this is what you want to do.
Yeah.
But then, there's problems with it. There's issues with it. Most of the time, almost 100% of the time, there's a problem with it. And then you have to go back, email them, instead of just going up to their office and asking, hey, this thing's wrong, this thing's wrong, this thing's wrong.
So your world did not become more efficient with everybody working from home?
Oh, no, actually. It's I've never worked from home just because I can't. It's kind of like, oh, man, all these guys get to work from home, and I don't. And then actually, too, a few times, there's just been times when there's no government representation. So they're like, oh, well, we can't go to work today. And they're like, oh, that's terrible.
So it's created a lot more. It's created a lot more waste and friction rather than making things smoother and more efficient.
Yeah. And honestly, though, I mean, the people that I work with, no one's like, oh, I hate Trump. It's just a normal thing. No one that I work with has been upset about it. It's just, we just got to go back to work.
Yeah. It's there's a new boss, and he's issued his orders. Thank you, Hunter. I appreciate the call there. I've got Xavier is calling in from Tyson's Corner on line 1. Xavier on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, good afternoon, Vince. Great show as usual.
Thank you.
I just want to say I used to work at the CIA, and they had an entire wing of a building over in Reston that was dedicated to DEI, and really was one of the most worthless functions that they had installed there. A lot of it happened after the Clintons. A lot of it came in during the Obama era. But I've got a couple of friends in contracting over there that are probably celebrating, but they're in a minority. But the CIA used to be one of the best places to work in the federal government. I'm not so sure anymore. I don't think I would apply there if I were to go back. But I'll tell you, there's probably some that are very happy about this. There's a lot of waste that can be removed, even from the CIA, to get back to actual mission.
Yeah.
By the way, I wanted to mention that bishop yesterday. We were talking about that bishop who addressed Donald Trump during the prayer.
Yeah, the priestess.
Yes, exactly right. She obviously hasn't read John 10, verse 1, which Jesus is talking about himself being the only path to God. But he uses the analogy of someone who comes over the wall of the sheepfold rather than going in through the gate. He refers to the one that goes over the wall as being a robber and a thief. So even though he's talking about himself, he uses that analogy. So coming into the country illegally, like over the wall, as it were, or across the border, I think that the priest should probably look at that and say, yeah, these people are invaders rather than coming in legitimately.
Yeah, well, hopefully she can get to the Bible at some point. I think she's got a few more television appearances to do before she gets back to that. Hey, thank you very much. Good to hear from you.
Sure enough, Vince. Keep up the good work.
There he is, Xavier in Tyson's Corner. All right. Daniel calling in from Annapolis, now line 1. Hello, Daniel. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, thanks, Vince. Hey, I'm a federal employee. I'm considered emergency essential. I've shown up every day to work through the pandemic up to present time. And we have people just like that other fella who worked in the design of projects, and they're at home.
Yeah.
And anytime we have an issue, I can't get a hold of them. And when I do, they're like, hey, FaceTime me and show me what's going on. No, I'm tired of doing other people's work. You either get into the office or you quit, and that's the way I feel.
Well, that's apparently how President Trump feels too, Daniel. Thank you for that. Yeah, maybe some more efficiency will come with all of this. And the other piece is, they say it's so hard to fire deadbeat federal employees. Well, what if you make their lives a little more uncomfortable? What if you're like, hey, you got to come back to work? That's the ultimatum. Show up back in the office. But I don't want to. Okay, then find another job. It's a very simple thing. We'll see. And then we can get to a world. We've got a more efficient government workforce. We can do some work from home again. But right now, we've got some cleaning up to do. All right, coming up, we'll be chatting with Jonathan Fahey, former acting ICE director. President Trump is already ejecting violent criminals from our country. Those raids are underway. And it's not the images that the left was hoping for. It's not families being separated. It's violent people being taken off the street. Details ahead. Hey, good afternoon to you. It's now 3:36 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Matthew Hurt with the Arlington County Republican Party. He'll talk about the threats to the schools in Northern Virginia, including somehow men are ending up in high school girls' locker rooms. How did that happen? Matthew Hurt will talk about that with us. And then Kurt Schlichter is here at 5 o'clock. We'll chat with that retired Army colonel about Pete Hegseth, his nomination advancing in the Senate, but not without some resistance from fake Republicans. And you can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. President Trump's mandate, if he has any, is to get the border under control. And he said about doing that very quickly. Here is the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, yesterday just outside the White House.
I believe it was Reuters who broke the news that President Trump signed an executive order of 1,500 additional troops to the United States southern border. This comes off of his day one action, as I just talked about on Fox News, to direct the Department of Defense to make Homeland Security a core mission of the agency. This is something President Trump campaigned on. The American people have been waiting for such a time as this. For our Department of Defense to actually take Homeland Security seriously. This is a number one priority of the American people, and the president is already delivering.
1,500 troops to the border, including United States Marines from California. Jennifer Griffin of the Fox News Channel reports that 500 Marines are being sent, and the Marine Corps is planning to send up to 2,500 Marines if necessary. In fact, they are locked and loaded, that they do have ammunition in those guns, and Marine officials telling Jennifer Griffin that their response will be, quote, immediate. We are going in ready to respond. If the cartels shoot at us, we will not stand by. The Marines prepared to gun down the cartels on our border under President Trump. Boy, that's a welcome change. Additionally, ICE raids have begun. Immigration and Customs Enforcement all across the country, taking very violent criminals into custody. Here's Fox's Bill Malugin doing a ride-along in Boston.
It's a frigid 5 degrees in the pre-dawn hours just outside of Boston, where this team of elite ICE officers is briefing on their targets for the day.
We're going to be targeting some extremely violent offenders today.
Within moments, the officers are on the move, with eyes on their first target.
Looks like we got movement, target vehicle coming out.
They quickly take him into custody. He's an MS-13 gang member wanted in El Salvador for aggravated murder. And he has an Interpol red notice out for his arrest.
We are targeting very violent threats to our community.
I'm not going back to Haiti.
One of those threats is this illegal alien from Haiti. ICE says he's a gang member with 17 criminal convictions in recent years.
Trump, you feel me? Yo, Biden forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro.
Bleep Trump. Thank Joe Biden forever. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro. Says the very violent illegal just taken into custody by the Trump administration. Here to discuss all of it, Jonathan Fahey, former federal prosecutor, former acting ICE director under President Trump. Sir, good to have you back with us.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a new day, isn't it? A new day in America. A new administration makes quite a change.
It's amazing, it's just to think this is only day 4 of this, and the first day was a lot of ceremonial stuff, and it's like we are already taking control of the border, already removing the most serious criminals. And that last clip you had of the person that said the unfavorable things about Trump, it really says everything you need to know about what the previous administration was versus the current one. The previous administration fought to keep people like that in the country. They fought to keep sex offenders, gang members. They supported sanctuary cities. It's truly we talked about it so many times, but it's so mind-boggling that's their fault line is serious criminals. They still fought to keep them in, and it just shows in 3 or 4 days. You see what the people that Bill Malugin's talking about, but you also see the numbers on the southern border. I think they've already dropped. The daily numbers are down around 700 a day after just 4 days. And now that we have the military going on there, and the message is very clear, I think it's not going to be misunderstood. The numbers are going to be almost nil, I think, probably within a month or so. And now we can start moving and putting the resources on getting rid of the serious criminals here, which, as you know, is what that ICE letter from August was. 660,000 people are in this country illegally that have criminal records, and the Biden administration couldn't have cared less about deporting them.
So that gets to my next question, which is, didn't the Biden administration know about some of the guys you just heard in that audio? Didn't the Biden administration know that we had murderers, rapists, gangsters, drug dealers illegally here in the United States, and they just let them run free? Because it's not like the Trump administration just suddenly discovered this. They arrived and they looked at the database and they said, we've got to pick these bad guys up, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's such a good point because, they've only been in office, 3 or 4 days. So these were people that were known to known to ICE before this, because it wouldn't be possible for them to show up and all of a sudden know where everyone is. So these are people that were known to Joe Biden's, DHS, his DOJ, and they weren't doing anything about it. I mean, they wouldn't even arrest the serious criminals. They let the sanctuary cities let all these people go and never said boo about it. And it was just so disgraceful. And like we've talked about on the show about Laken Riley, there were so many times her life could have been saved, but they chose open borders ahead of public safety every single time. And we know why they were doing it. They were doing it for political reasons. And you see, it proves to be true now, because now the Democrats are fighting these things that are totally common sense, that things like remain in Mexico or these ICE raids. They're going to try to say, they're going to arrest people at schools and hospitals because Trump they changed the policy that restricted where arrests could take place. And so if they really were supportive, like you see some of these senators on the Hill questioning people about suggesting they were tough on the border with all these bills they were going to pass, but they're going to fight Donald Trump
tooth and nail on every single deportation, but I think they've lost the plot on this issue, and they're starting to, you saw what was about 12 or 13 senators voted for the Lake and Riley bill, which we would not have seen that 6 months ago. It would have been how it was 50 out of 50 or how many they had.
No, you're totally right about that, and thank goodness. I mean, I think the American people spoke, and at least some of the Democrats have gotten the message on this subject. And so that's great news. The Lake and Riley Act going to the president's desk now. The ICE agents. You were the acting ICE director, Jonathan Fahey. How big of a deal is this that the handcuffs have been taken off of the ICE agents, that they're allowed to actually do their job now? What does that mean for morale?
I think morale is probably through the roof. I mean, to think about it, they had been in these jobs where the people that were in charge of them actually hated them and wanted them to fail and didn't care if they put them at risk. We saw that with the Border Patrol agents that were accused of whipping migrants and things like that. We're crushing the morale. They are so happy to have, one, to be able to do their jobs because they know their jobs are important for public safety, but two, to have people that support them, and you need leadership that supports you. And it's been such an unbelievable disgrace what's gone on for the last 4 years. I think they're going to be so happy, so productive. And the other thing that's great about it is they're going to be able to recruit again because, the last 4 years, no one would want to go into these agencies knowing how they're treated and knowing how their mission is treated. So it's going to really be a force multiplier because they can work with the locals and, they get to make the country safer, which is what they signed up for.
The other piece that I'm concerned about is the risk that exists for these ICE agents. So now that it's very public what's happening, you've got a lot of raids on the bad guys going on all across the country, which means that ICE agents may be entering into spaces that are in some ways prepared for them, quite unfortunately, as some of these very violent illegals may want to barricade or shoot back. I'm concerned about this. What's the safety situation for these ICE agents as they conduct these raids?
Yeah, that's a great point, and it's another great point against the sanctuary cities because what these ICE agents are forced to do because these sanctuary cities release criminals back in the community as opposed to comply with an ICE detainer, which would allow them to arrest them in a jail where they're safe. Yeah, so they're going to be at far greater risk. And, not only the people are going to arrest, but the other people that might be with them that are also illegal, which ICE is going to arrest. So these agents, every day, they're walking into danger. And most of this danger is caused, or a lot of it, is caused by these sanctuary city policies that, take away safe places for arrests to be made, which, if you're doing an arrest, you want to arrest where it's safe, where they won't have weapons, all of these things. And, they've taken that away for, cynical political reasons. And it's just, and mostly, the media portrays sanctuary cities as if they're protecting the kindergartners from ICE raids. That's what you get in the news media. So it's really, but they're actually protecting the child molester, the murderer, these other people, the gang member from being deported, which is just stunning and staggering and just totally awful.
Yes, that's right. And they're using the children as shields to continue this awful policy. Well, thank you, Jonathan Fahey, acting ICE director, former acting ICE director, and former federal prosecutor. Sir, always nice to talk to you on this subject. Really appreciate that today.
Thank you very much.
All right, there he is. I want to go now to some audio because as we speak, President Trump has begun signing a series of new executive orders. We're not that far into this presidency, and he's got a big stack in front of him. Let's check in with the Oval Office now.
Case, and it will go through the first one, please.
Do you want to? Yeah, Mr. President, this is an executive order on crypto. We're going to be. Oh, sorry, we're doing the draft first. Sorry, Mr. President, this is an executive order on AI. We're basically announcing the administration's policy to make America the world capital in artificial intelligence and to dominate and to lead the world in AI.
Do you want to say your name, your full name?
Yeah, David
and
Sachs,
serial?
AI and Crypto Czar.
David is one of the greatest in the world at AI. Most respected, probably, there is.
We've got some big splashy ones coming here. Should I spoil it? Why not? He's going to declassify MLK and JFK files.
Take us to the forefront, right?
In just moments here.
We got to win.
Okay. Thank you. And this, David, is?
Yeah, this is the crypto EO. We're going to be forming an internal working group to make to make America the world capital in crypto under your leadership.
So they're
Which
taking
is
both,
really going up, right?
both AI and crypto very seriously. We'll have to look at the text of this, but it sounds like more symbolic than anything that, hey, we're going to be the leader on this subject.
All right, David, that's for you. Thanks.
The president holding up each executive order with that big black signature on it, the Sharpie.
You find them exciting? They might not be exciting, but they're going to make a lot of money for the country.
Thank you, sir.
And so is David. You have to check him out. There's nobody like this guy. They said, how did you get David Sachs? How did you do that? And he's doing it for the country more than anything else.
Will
so
Sharf.
We appreciate it, David.
Will
Thank you
Sharf,
very
the
much.
president's attorney, now stepping up to the desk.
Executive order establishing a presidential commission, an advisory commission on science and technology.
Good.
Dr. Fauci will not be on that commission.
Do you want to explain that a little bit?
The basic idea is to get together top people from government, the private sector, technology industry, as well as educational institutions, to make sure that America maintains its leadership position with respect to science and technology development in the years ahead.
Good. That's great.
Next, sir, we have a presidential memorandum encouraging departments and agencies in your government, including the Department of the Interior, to promote federal recognition of the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina.
I love the Lumbee tribe. So this is their first big step, right?
This would be a huge step for them, sir.
Yeah, they were with me all the way. They were great. North Carolina, Lumbee tribe. Okay, you'll send them a copy of that?
Yes, sir.
They were great. Okay?
And if you'd like, I could get them that pen, sir, as well.
Yeah, let's do that.
Next, we have a set of pardons for peaceful pro-life protesters.
There you go.
Who were prosecuted by the Biden administration for exercising their First Amendment rights.
Just ahead of the March for Life.
I believe it's 23, sir.
23 people were prosecuted. They should not have been prosecuted. Many of them are elderly people. They should not have been prosecuted. This is a great honor to sign this.
See some of those people outside of abortion mills sitting in wheelchairs, singing church hymns, their lives destroyed by the Biden administration. President Trump with a pardon today.
They'll be very happy. So they're all in prison now.
Some are out of custody.
It's ridiculous. Okay?
Lastly, sir, we have an executive order ordering the declassification of files relating to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
That's a big one, huh? A lot of people are waiting for this for years, for decades.
We'll see what happens. We'll see how expansive it is. The government's been saying for years they would declassify all of these things.
Everything will be revealed.
Everything will be revealed, he says.
Okay.
All right, more in a moment. I understand he took some questions as well. We'll see if we can't get to those. That's ahead on the Vince Coglianese Show. I'm looking a little more closely now at the order declassifying the records concerning the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And this seems pretty unequivocal. President Trump saying, no more delays. It's in the public interest not to redact any of this and air out the full records of what the federal government knows about the deaths of all three of those men. So pretty amazing. As I said, the president took some questions in the Oval Office. We'll play that audio for you in just a moment. Go over some of that, and we'll talk to Matthew Hurt, chairman of the Arlington Republican Party, in the next hour as we take a closer look into how are naked men ending up in the high school girls' rooms in Arlington. We'd like to stop that, wouldn't we? That's ahead.